Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. Hey, today we've just got an exciting episode. We've got Lauren Sisler. Lauren is the sideline ESPN reporter for SEC football and gymnastics. But Lauren, I'll tell you what, after just several meetings with her, it's almost like she's just a good friend. And I think after listening to this episode, you're going to feel that way too. Lauren, while she has all the accolades of having fun by being a sideline reporter, working for ESPN, Lauren has a lot of tragedy that has happened to her over 10 to 12 years ago. It's something that she's going to go into. She's going to dive into, and it's the resiliency that we look for when we talk about the Inspiration Podcast. And I'll tell you what, just her ability to put one foot in front of the other is going to inspire you. And so please, feel free to grab a cup of coffee. And if you're driving, obviously just grab a virtual cup of coffee and just listen to Lauren and listen to her story. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. So, you know what? Let's get started. Let's have a great day and let's listen. Here's Lauren. Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome everybody to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan, and I have my good friend Lauren Sisler on with me today. Welcome to the house, Lauren.
Hello, hello. How's it going, Stan? Good to see you, bud. It's always good to see your smiling face.
Oh, and you as well. You as well. I think, we were chatting before we came on. I've been kicked out of my house, because of my grandsons, and I didn't want this chaotic background of them running behind me, waving their arms or running naked or what do they normally do. So I'm in a library. I didn't even know these things existed. And quite honestly, they're pretty cool places since I went to college anyway. And it's not like I went to it often when I was in college. But anyway, where do we find you today, Lauren?
You put yourself in a safe, controlled environment, which is really funny. I am actually in my home, but it's funny you say that. So I have my dog sitting here next to me. She's not a puppy anymore, so she's usually pretty calm. And then, you know what always happens to me, though? Anytime I'm recording or have a phone call, so we have two of those Shark robot vacuums, one for upstairs, one for downstairs. Inevitably, like right before we were about to jump on this podcast recording, I literally had to get in the app. It's amazing technology, and stop the vacuum, because I swear to you, it's always something. But hey, I understand the kids running around. I've got a 2-year-old Mason, and very unpredictable, my friend. But you know what? That's sometimes the beauty of it all. And so I've learned in the unpredictable chaos, sometimes you just have to acknowledge it and embrace it and roll with it.
You've bet, we met through your good friend, and I hope now mine, Carly Patterson, who is the 2004 gold medal winner for the United States in gymnastics. And I said, boy, you have somebody pretty cool that would like to be on the Inspiration Podcast, and Lauren Sisler.
Oh, she's the best. Aw.
She is. And so
we love you, Carly.
We do. And that's how we met. And then you were talking, we first met, we had this 15-minute conversation that went on for an hour and 15 minutes while you were in the car, and Mason was in the background, and Mason did just fine contributing to the conversation. I thought he was a great conversationalist.
Oh, yes. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's awesome.
Well, we're going to talk about a lot of that today. And again, for those of you that, listen to the promo, Lauren is she works for ESPN, sideline reporter for the SEC and football and gymnastics, and does all these cool things. And we're going to talk about, some good things, but we're going to talk about some tragedy today. But my first question is going to be, it's probably going to be really hard. And it's not going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard for me because of the answer I think you're going to give me. But when you prepared for this podcast today, did you do the shimmy?
Did I do the shimmy? Oh, yeah. The shimmy's always happening. Yes, absolutely. I'm in my bathroom, fixing my hair up, putting a little makeup on, and the dancing is always there. The sideline shimmy, my friend. Look. That has become one of the best ways for me to get grounded, and all the nerves and the chaos that is going on the sidelines, y'all. The band is playing, people are screaming and yelling, the players are running past you, sometimes running you over. It happens on the sidelines from time to time. But the nerves are real. And Stan, you can probably appreciate this too. I think that a lot of times in life we feel like, oh, we're just going to prepare. And then we get up on stage or we get in that boardroom to present, whatever it is we want to sell or a product or any, whatever it is in life. The nerves just hit us. It's like just a shot of like, oh, where did this come from, And, people ask me all the time, like, do you still get nervous when you go on TV? I'm like, heck yeah. Like, I'm about to go on TV in front of a million, I got fans there screaming in real time. And then on the other side of the camera, upwards of 1 million viewers that are hanging on to every word that I say. And it's hard sometimes to just shake the nerves, even if I know exactly what I'm going to say and I'm super confident. Sometimes it's like, so the sideline shimmy just, helps me to get grounded in all of that and redistribute some of the nerves. But I'll tell you, Stan, like in the world of athletics, like the adrenaline is something you cannot replicate. As a former gymnast, I loved the adrenaline that came with stepping out there, saluting the judges, and it is go time, baby. And I was like, when my gymnastics career was over, our good friend Carly can attest to this as well. You're just like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Because there's no such thing as like a pickup game of gymnastics in the backyard. Okay. Like that doesn't exist. So like your days of gymnastics are over, but it's so cool to be able to step out there and feel that same adrenaline and that excitement, that replicates, to some degree of what I used to feel when I was in my glory days competing in gymnastics.
Well, I feel I know you pretty well. I still went into Wikipedia. You have a Wikipedia, my friend. I mean, that's pretty cool just in and of itself. But
I'm just curious to know who updates those, by the way. I'm just always curious. I'm like, okay, I would love to see the resource here because they seem to know a lot of information, sometimes more than I know.
They do. And in the first paragraph, it talks about the shimmy. And so anyway, that's what really kind of, I just found it. And number one, for you listeners, you've got to go onto YouTube and you got to watch the Lauren Sisler shimmy. I mean, that's your jam. That's your thing. And it's kind of your shtick. I mean, it's what people expect out of you now.
I know it really is. And it really actually came to fruition in a weird sort of way because, so I didn't realize so when the cameras are on in the stadium, like the cameras are always rolling. So I always like to tell people that because if you're some crazy fan that thinks that maybe you could do something and not get caught like before the game kicks off, no, the cameras are always rolling. And so I used to just kind of like dance around because I was like nervous energy trying to like do that. Little did I know that they were always recording me. And so I got video clips of me dancing like an idiot. And I just posted on social media one time and it just kind of took off. And so that's really, where things have gone. And, honestly, it's become part of my life and my mantra. I love to dance, but really the sideline shimmy is, for me, it's joy. And it's finding joy, eliminating fear, bringing joy into the fold and shining a light on that. And so my hope and this lifetime of mine is that I can help others find their sideline shimmy.
Well, you're defying a myth, and that myth is that tall people can't dance. And you've got the moves. I'm 6'6", and I got no move. I can't even say moves. I don't got move. I don't got one move. So anyway, so I'm like you, probably the later the night, maybe more juiced up. Yeah, I can probably get one going. But anyway, that's a great shtick.
Well, that's funny you say that because it depends on who you ask. If you, so Instagram, I tend, as you mentioned, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. I'll post these videos there and you could just like scroll down the comments and, some of them, a lot of them are funny or, whatever, positive. And then you've got some that are questionable and that they also question why I'm even dancing on the sidelines because, I'm not always in rhythm, not always, I don't always have the best move, but you know what? That's the key to it. You just do it. You do you, right? Like, who cares who's watching?
Yeah.
I say they say the whole mindset is like dance like nobody's watching.
Yeah,
oh no, I dance like everybody is watching. Okay. And it doesn't change anything.
Well, I love it. I love it. And, when we talked a little bit too, so now you are, and help me get this right, but I think you've got is it regional Emmys or 2 Emmys? I mean, in reporting, right?
Well, actually, it's funny you say that. I actually have 3 now. One of them is back here. I know. I have one back here. I have one on my shelf over there. I'm not trying to be over braggadocious, but we actually just won another one this year. I did an interview with new Alabama head football coach, Kalen DeBoer, which is funny because it's weird saying Nick Saban is like former head football coach of Alabama. So, yeah, we did an interview with him last summer heading into his first season. And, yeah, we won an Emmy for it. So it's been pretty cool. My Emmys have come from, a couple different things. But I guess the one that I really, cherish is this one, because this one is I did an interview. I produced a segment with Charles Barkley and Nick Saban. And
That's
so,
exactly where I was going, my friend. Keep going.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you got two people, polar opposites, but both polarizing in their own right. And, you got your Auburn guy and your Alabama guy. Charles Barkley, I mean, he literally is like the king of entertainment. And then Nick Saban, he's all about the process, and he's just, championship after championship after championship. And so this was several years ago. We produced this segment. It was just so much fun. Putting them in the stands at Coleman Coliseum at Alabama. Charles Barkley put his little Auburn straw hat on, which we bought for him. And it's funny because I think we bought it maybe like 2 sizes too small. So he
How
was
do you
like,
get a hat
I
big
know,
enough for
I
Charles
know.
Barkley?
For the round mound, right? I know. It was so funny. And he's like asking Saban, like, how do you make this thing comfortable? Like, I don't know how this thing works. But it was a fun segment and really just so enlightening in so many ways. Just the way they conversed about different obviously about sports and coaching, but just about life and second chances. And, it was really just a really fun conversation, powerful conversation. And, again, you get two people like that in a room together. And I think the even coolest part about that is, that conversation happened. And from there, a friendship blossomed. And so I think that's what I love about that conversation is their friendship continued. And I know that Nick Saban reached out to Charles Barkley for some insight, for some help, for some advice on different things. And I thought that was like really cool, that you have someone that kind of leaned in and was like, hey,
Mm.
like, I don't know it all. And I think a really cool part of this story, Stan, is that, and I kind of laugh about this, but after we had done the segment, we had taken some pictures of them up in the stands, right? So you got Charles Barkley, Nick Saban. By the way, this thing is on YouTube. So if you literally Google search like Charles Barkley, Nick Saban interview, and it would have been back in 2016. So we're talking like almost a decade ago, which is wild. But basically you can Google search that and you'll see it. But all that to say is we had taken a picture and I had given a framed picture of Nick Saban and Charles Barkley in the stands to Charles. I had said, hey, here's a little gift. Thank you so much for doing this. This was awesome. And he looked at me and he said, hey, do you think there's any way you could get Nick Saban to sign this? And I'm thinking to myself, like, in what world, right? Like Charles Barkley cares that much about an autograph. And of course I got it and it was great. But I think it's just so cool that that someone like Charles Barkley has so much respect for Nick Saban and for the work that he's done, even though he's on the enemy sidelines, right? As the Alabama
Yeah.
Auburn. So it's pretty cool.
We talked about it too. So what's really cool is that, yeah, you've got this special relationship with Nick, and you also have a special relationship with his wife, as my sister-in-law has a special relationship with Nick's wife. Talk about her. Who runs that family? We both know who runs
Miss
that family.
Terry
Miss
is
Terry.
the best. She's phenomenal. I mean, talk about a heart of gold. That whole family. I had spent some time with Kristen Saban as well. Haven't seen her in a while, but what a great family. And I think it can be a challenge because you're always in the spotlight, you're always in the limelight. Everything's under a microscope. Everybody wants to analyze every little thing you're doing. But when I say like people that truly have a heart of gold and they have the Knicks Kids Foundation and they do a lot of great work in the communities. But you're right, Miss Terry. I think this is kind of a funny thing. So I would usually once a year would do Nick Saban's radio show. So every Thursday before a game, they would do a radio show at the local like Baumhauer's Grill. And so what they do is they bring in someone from the media to basically host it, ask questions, and then, they get callers that call in and
Yeah.
people at the restaurant. Well, Miss Terry always comes. And so she would come in the doors, we chat for a few minutes, but it was so cool and also funny because I would be sitting there like in the middle of the, the table, and you'd be looking out to everybody around. And then Nick Saban's to my right, and Miss Terry would be there in the front row. They would always have a table for their family and friends right there in the front. You would always see Miss Terry. And it was so great because he would like start answering questions, and you could see her almost like, you know, encouraging him along. And she'd be like, when he would say something really good, she would like smile real big and nod real big. And it was almost like kind of like that little bouncing ball, like, and it just was, I was always enamored by that and just thought that was so cool because I do feel like he feeds off of her.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
don't think she gets that kind of credit. And I think that's the cool part. Like I just love that about their relationship. And um, I think that she certainly has sacrificed a lot in her lifetime to be not just a coach's wife, but so much more than that. And I think she deserves to be applauded for that. I applaud her, Miss Terry, for that, for being that person and really just being the heartbeat of, the Alabama Crimson Tide, of the young men that have come up through that program. And of course, Nick Saban, because, we all know that he would not be surviving without Miss Terry. Okay.
No, no, I think that's fair game, and I also remember game day last year where I think she was on. She
Oh, the
stole the
guest
show.
picker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
she stole the show. I mean,
And
you know,
she was like she was like I remember she did like the guest picking, and I think that for a long time she was like ahead of a lot of, because they kind of rank people. And
yeah,
I don't know what it ended up being at the end of the season, but I know that she had some fair picks in there. So that's pretty cool.
wow. So so yeah, this is for the audience, it's got to sound so exciting because ESPN sideline reporter, you've got all these cool relationships, you do all these wonderful things, you got the shimmy no less. But the thing about the Inspiration Podcast with Stan is, we do talk about some of the tougher times in life. We do go a little deep, and unfortunately, we have to go there because whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's challenges in life, again, if you listen to my first episode of season 2 about faith, I talked about the fact that, the good word doesn't say if you're going to have hard times, it says when you're going to have hard times. And there's differing degrees of hard times. I get that. But Lauren, we're here really kind of to talk about, how you've evolved because you've been through some real tragedy in your life. And so if you will, take us through a little bit of that. And I know it's got to be hard to do this on a day in, day out basis, but take us through some of this tragedy and the timeline that you can share with us in the audience.
Yeah. You're right. And I do want to highlight what you said there about facing tragedy and hardship, because it is something that I have learned, and it's something that I speak on and share. God did not promise to deliver us from hardships, but he promised to deliver us through hardships.
Mm.
And so I think that is where I've realized that, yeah, I mean, there's no script for this life. Like our plan, our steps, everything's mapped out for us, certainly. And, we don't always have we certainly don't have the keys to the car,
Right.
and a lot of times we're not able to see but just a few feet in front of us. We can't see the big picture. And so, it has been like life has thrown a lot of curveballs. And I think that I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, with a loving mom and dad, an older brother, Alan. And as far as was concerned, we had that picture perfect family, like sports family. My parents were always so involved. I had a gymnastics career. I was aspiring to be a collegiate gymnast, going after that scholarship. My brother was a 3-sport athlete. Like, we were doing life, and we were busy. But my parents were always very involved, very connected, and life was good. And so I get a scholarship to Rutgers, and so now I'm living out the next chapter of my big dreams as a collegiate gymnast, and called and talked to my parents on the phone like I always did. I'm 8 hours from home, and we were super tight, always had those conversations. And so I called my parents, talked to them on the phone. That evening we hung up, said our goodbyes and I love yous, and little did I know that would be the last time I would talk to both of my parents. I woke up to a phone call from my dad to tell me that my mom had died. She's 45 years old. It's the middle of the night. I'm like, "What? Like, I don't understand." And he said, "I can't explain it now. Get on the next plane you can, and I'll be at the airport to pick you up." And plane touches down, I grab my bags, I run outside, and instead it's my cousin and my uncle there to pick me up to let me know that my dad too had passed away. So within a matter of 5 hours, both my parents passed away. And, we'll get to the why, but I'll tell you, it took me a very long time to uncover and discover the reason, the how, the why my parents passed away. And the reason it took me so long is because of one thing and one thing, and that's shame.
Boy, if you're listening and as I'm talking, it's hard to process losing both of your parents because, the one thing that I have learned about you is that you have this strong relationship with your parents. I mean, you burned up the phone lines with them on a daily basis. I mean, it was life as usual. I mean, it was every day was just, there was nothing to be seen behind the scenes. Can you go into a little bit about maybe, what it was that took their life and, how you've been able to process that?
Yeah. So, it's been a long journey of processing. And even still today, 22 years after their passing, I still process those things. And it has been quite a journey and a healing journey to get to this point, to even have the courage, Stan, to even get on this podcast to share the depths of their lives and
Mhm.
ultimately what took their lives. And so both my parents were going to a pain management doctor in Roanoke, Virginia. And my mom had degenerative disc disease, so she had multiple surgeries over the course of a few years, and my dad had chronic back pain, PTSD from his service in the military. He was stationed in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in fact, when I was born, and so he served 5 years in the Navy, and, he struggled, with some of those things, and ultimately, they were going to a pain management doctor, being prescribed medication to help them deal with their chronic pain, and eventually they began misusing and abusing it. The doctors were saying and all the research was saying and all the ads and the promos were saying, this is not addictive, not addictive. And yet underneath it all, it was just like, boom, like both of my parents, at some point in time in those few years that they really started struggling with their medication, just started taking more and more and more. And it was the only thing that got them out of bed in the morning, got a smile on their faces, helped them to navigate life and still provide for their family and still live some semblance of a normal life. And, unfortunately, those medications eventually took their lives. Both my parents, my mom was prescribed fentanyl and, the Oxycontin just wasn't enough anymore. So both my parents had started abusing the fentanyl as well. And ultimately, they both took a lethal dose of it. I think knowing what it could potentially do, but also when you become so addicted to a substance, nothing else matters, right? You go into this almost euphoric state of the here, the right now, and I'm not worried about what happens tomorrow when the sun comes up because I've got to get my fix. I've got to get my high because it just consumes your entire being.
So obviously a lot to process. And I know that you went back to Rutgers, right away. Not right away, but you can tell that story. But I mean, even the processing, I know that, my wife and I have a friend, they lost her daughter to opioid uh, addiction. And she was a young, in her early 20s. But I know
Oh,
that it cost her life because she couldn't get over the pain. And within 3 to 4 years, she passed herself at a very young age
oh,
as a mother.
wow.
And so the processing of losing a loved one is different for everybody. But how did you put one step forward after losing both parents? And I know that you went back to school and you've got a brother too in this equation.
Yeah, it's interesting because I get the question a lot about like, how did you build resilience? How did you continue going? How did you keep going? Like, what did that process look like? And I'll tell you, I mean, first of all, it was not a linear path. And I say that to people because I think that a lot of times we just assume like grief is linear, right? Healing is linear, and it's not. I mean, and I equate it to this, and I really did a lot of soul searching and discovery in writing my book Shatterproof. And that process started 19 years after my parents passed away. Okay, so 19 years later, I finally have the courage to pick up the pen and paper and start really digging into the depths of the story and the why and the how and how did we get here. And I think that process and really and my therapist, who I am so grateful for, Miss Neely Haynes, she's just been great. helped kind of like, it's almost like this illustration. And, this might help those of you listening that have experienced this before, because we do want answers to the questions a lot of times, and we want to understand the why. And so for me, as I'm trying to unpack and uncover the why and the how, it's like I would start to slowly open the door and peek around the corner, and then I would get scared and slam that door shut.
Mhm.
I'm not going there. And so that's why for so many years, I ran with the sugar-coated story that my parents, mom died of respiratory failure, dad died of a heart attack. Because when I say that, that sounds so much better than my parents died of fentanyl overdoses, right? So I think that when people hear the why, the how, they immediately start to process and start to label the situation, right? And so they start to throw labels on people, on things, on circumstances, and, try to put people in a box. And I think that was my greatest fear. And in many ways, I was already doing that because I was already labeling my parents by hiding the truth of what happened to them, because I was fearful that they would be labeled by others as addicts, as dysfunctional, because we have so many things that we tie to the word addict. And that's where I was at. And so, man, that healing journey, I'll tell you, it's like poking that door open and then slamming it shut, and then having that courage. I'm going to take a step through it. And then it's kind of like, I don't know about this, And so it's literally in many ways taking 5 steps forward and 10 steps backwards, constantly, that tug of war. Because, again, it's not linear. Healing is not linear. And, that whole idea of like the ebbs and flows of good days and bad days, like, I think we get into this mindset of like, well, I experienced this tragedy or went through this thing of loss like 2 years ago. I should be over it by now. No, that's not how this thing works. And so I think that, and I will say, in just full disclosure, that has become more apparent to me now in recent months, even, because unfortunately you mentioned my brother Stan. He passed away in November from some health issues, and he has his story, and one that one day when I'm ready and start to unpack what that looks like, hope to find out more and understand more, and my brother had a different journey. I went back to Rutgers, where it was like, oh, we're going to love you through this, right? 2 weeks after my parents died, back at Rutgers. But my auntie Linda, my mom's sister, felt that was the best place for me, because it's like, you need a support system. You can't sit at home and just wallow in this. Like, we got to get you back out there. Well, guess what? For my brother, military. He was in the Navy, followed in my dad's footsteps. And, his return was put on the boots and you're going to war. Totally different. And so I think circumstances certainly play a big part into response and reaction. And, we're two different beings. My brother handled things a lot differently than I did. He's a man. I'm going to call it like it is, Stan, because I'm staring you in the eye. A man. Men wear their emotions differently. And sometimes they don't wear their emotions at all. And us women over here, man, let me tell you, let it rain, let it pour, baby. I ain't afraid to say it. I'm a crier, and I am an ugly crier.
Oh.
Like I will let it rip, man.
No.
So it's a challenge, and it's really hard to piece together the exact why, and why does one person go in this direction and another. But I think that is where resilience really becomes a testament to the human spirit. That, I'll be honest with you, this is kind of how the title of my book came up, Shatterproof, because I've been leaning into this messaging because of being shatterproof. Like, right, it's like someone takes a baseball bat to your life. And a friend of mine, Gary Schneeberger, actually kind of used this analogy to help me picture it, is like someone takes a baseball bat to your life and shatters it into a million pieces. But through the human spirit, we can pick up those pieces and still create a life of joy and purpose, no matter how shattered our world seems and feels. But it also requires hard work, and it requires the choice and the commitment and the buy-in to say, hey, I'm not going to let this thing destroy me.
Yeah. Wow. This is powerful. So your book, Shatterproof, and the title Shatterproof. I overcame the shame of losing my parents to an opioid addiction and found my shimmy on the sideline. I noted in the forward, or it was just it's because there is a website to promote your book, and I want you to talk about that in a second. But there was something that it was on the website that it said, "I lost my parents to a secret opioid addiction. I lost my voice when the shame shattered my heart. But when I fell in love with my story, I became shatterproof." That's strong. Tell us about your story. I mean, when I found, I fell in love with my story. How do you fall in love with this story, my friend? How did you do that?
Yeah. Oh man, let me tell you, it is such a gift to be able to to find that freedom that comes when you truly learn to fall in love with your story. And once again, not linear, because I will be honest with you, full disclosure, everybody. I have these bracelets. Some friends of mine have a company, Presently Bracelets, and we created this bracelet. I'm in love with my story, so it's like an affirmation. I remember sitting in the floor of my bedroom shortly after my brother passed away, in my book Shatterproof, which I refused to touch for the longest time. Let me tell you, would not touch it, would not open it. Don't go there. And I had those bracelets sitting on the floor, and I was like, burn it all down, light it on fire. I How can I be in love with my story if this is my story? And it took, I just had to be in it. I just had to wade through it and be in it, not try to outrun it, not try to hide from it, not try to, mask it. I just had to be in it. And it really started to bring back this idea of, like, you truly have to work at it. And what does that look like? I think it takes discovery. I think it takes letting go, because so often we want to claim the narrative. We want to create the narrative for everyone else to see and hear. And sometimes you just got to lay your arms down and say, like, this is what it is. I can't necessarily go back and rewrite the last chapter, but I do have a choice as to how I respond and maybe what those chapters ahead look like, because you can choose to unpack your bags in the mess of it all and like be in it and wade in the mess
Yeah.
and let it just anchor you down. Or you can choose to like pack your bags and dance down the road to a place where joy exists, where love and light and those things do actually exist. And I think that first and foremost is a choice. And you say, well, like, how do you go about doing that? And I don't think there's a simple answer to like, oh, well, if you wake up today and you do these 10 steps, you're going to get there. But really, I think it's discovery. And I think there is so much freedom in the truth. And I'm saying the truth, not our truth, but the truth. Because I do think in so many ways we try to, again, craft our narrative, craft what we want to be perceived as. I did it for years. But then it's like, no, there's only one truth. And like, this is it. Like, this is what happened. But my parents aren't defined by how they died, but by how they lived their lives. And when I started recognizing that I don't need to live a life of just preserving their legacy, I've got a legacy of my own. Now that I have a son, like, that's his legacy. What do I want him to learn? What do I want him to take away? Life isn't just butterflies and roses either. Like, it's hard, it's messy, it's tough. But when you realize that, first of all, you're not the only one, and that you have a network and a connection in people, like when you can really lean into the tough and the hard, I feel like you start to unwrap this gift of freedom that comes when you acknowledge the hard and acknowledge the tough. Some of those circumstances beyond your control, hey, some of them are your choice. We all make terrible choices. That's all. We're not broken, y'all. We are human.
Yeah.
And when you can start to acknowledge that, you just start to unpack those things. And I think that has been really beneficial. And then I'll say this, the therapy piece has been big for me because, in this healing journey, like, we're always healing. I'm never going to be healed. But as I'm walking into this healing journey, it's been so cool because now when I walk into my therapy sessions, I want to understand and unpack because it helps me to tie together maybe why I'm the way I am. And it helps me to be better in relationships because there's certain reasons, like Miss Independent over here. My parents died when I was 18. Well, my poor husband sometimes is just like, well, could you let me help out a little bit? I am your husband over here, and sometimes I just, I don't let people in because I'm like, you know what? I'll just do it myself. And so unpacking those things and really recognizing why I'm the way I am and how to, be a better communicator, a better, relationship partner, whatever it is, it helps to grow us. And I think that when you get curious about the why and the how, you can start to unpack those things and learn. And it does not by any means exempt you from other hard things happening. Because there for a little while when my brother passed away, I was like, well, I thought I had this suit of armor that I wouldn't feel the pain of grief because I've done it before and I've done it at such a high volume with my parents. But who was I kidding? Such a lie. That was a lie. I didn't have the suit of armor,
And that was, like you said, that was a little over 20 years ago. And yet it still follows you. I mean, before we got on, you had mentioned that tomorrow is kind of a special day in a way. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I am going to, you're talking about the memorial service for my
Right,
brother.
right.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So we had the funeral for my brother back in November. We did it back at my little brick church on Spruce Run back in Giles County. Such a beautiful setting. The church that we grew up going to, small little community church, and I mean that we were just packed as it could be. But such a blessing. And so we already did the funeral service and the the military honors, the presentation of the flag and all that for my brother. And now it's time to lay him to rest at the same cemetery, the veteran cemetery that my parents and grandparents are both at. And it's bittersweet. I say bittersweet in the sense that really like there's never closure. Stan, like this idea of like, oh well, this will be closure. I
Yeah,
don't think there's ever really truly closure.
I agree with you.
But I think the way that I'm actually viewing this, I mean, my heart definitely has been pretty heavy this week, knowing this is coming, because I know it's going to be a very emotional day, but already kind of thinking about like, even just for instance, we already did the funeral and I'm like, you know what? I just want to show up. We're going to take some sports chairs out there. My brother was a big Virginia Tech Hokies fan. We've got a bunch of Virginia Tech chairs. We're just going to go sit out there and talk to them, have conversations, share stories,
Mm.
Kind of eliminate the whole pomp and circumstance of we already did really the traditional funeral. And so this to me is just an opportunity to go spend time and really just be present in the moment. Because again, I think a lot of times we want to escape the moment. We want to escape the hurt and the pain. I know it's going to hurt being there, with him and with my parents and grandparents. And the reality sets in that like my entire family of origin is now gone, but I have so many gifts around me and family will be there. And I even laughed about this. I said, like, let's not get dressed up. Like, let's just, I have this mellow yellow t-shirt. Have you seen the movie Days of Thunder?
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like you're a Days of Thunder guy. I don't know why. I feel like you can get down with that, with Tom Cruise and Cole Trickle. So my brother and I had gotten these t-shirts, we had ordered these t-shirts and they were matching t-shirts, Cole Trickle shirts. So we wore the mellow yellow Cole Trickle shirts to Talladega, which is obviously the track out here near us in Birmingham. And so we had worn those t-shirts together as like twins, several years ago. And I said, like that's what I remember my brother as, he always had his like little camo shorts on and some t-shirt, Virginia Tech, NASCAR, whatever it was, whatever was, he loved. And so I just want to celebrate that and celebrate who he was and the love that we have for him. And to me, that's special. It's special because it doesn't get easier, when we lose people. That ache and that pain and that void will always be there. But I will say this, and I think this time is coming for my brother as this is still very fresh. But I will say this, Stan, it's hard to fathom that I actually have an affinity and a love for my parents that has grown so exponentially and profoundly, even in their absence.
Mm.
And I think that is such a beautiful gift as well, because you think like time has stood still for 22 years. Like I don't have that time with them, but yet my love for them continues to grow, and they just continue to influence my life every single day. And I think when you can acknowledge that even in that loss, that influence that comes with that, you were even talking about it before, Stan, like the epiphanies and the things that you're having in the wake of your loss, like the things that you are experiencing and feeling, and the things that are now coming to you in a different light. The fact that you're where your feet are and you're willing to accept it, listen to it, be aware of it, I think is amazing. And so, again, I think that's such a gift. And I think that's how we can be in the moment and be present, and not try to escape the pain that we're constantly trying to run from.
Yeah, I'm afraid because I know that your time is valuable, especially as you're getting ready for the new season coming up. But one thing I would like to just, if you could somehow compact it, but we do talk about faith a lot on the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. Going through what you've been through, was there a time you doubted? Was there a time you just said, "Why me?" Was there a time? I'm sure there was, but how did you process faith and healing and all of this? And I assume to come out stronger, but if not, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I mean, faith was such a big part of the journey. And I'm going to be honest with you, once again, not a linear path. I was always the rah-rah child growing up, like, let's go to church, let's pray. And, my parents always came in my bedroom. We prayed at night. We said our prayers. We always read these inspirational, my mom used to get me those Hallmark cards that looked like credit cards that always had like inspirational quotes or
Yeah.
scripture on them. And we would read those together. And, I always just felt like, even when things would get tough, like I was kind of the queen of optimism over here. And yet when my parents died, I didn't quit believing. I didn't lose all faith, but guess what I did? Instead of leaning in, I leaned out. I kind of did the whole like, I'm going to do this on my own kind of thing, right? And in some ways, the anger
Sure.
creeps in. The anger infiltrates you, and you didn't do the why me, why did this happen to me? And you in some ways play that victim card, and anger sets in. And I for sure did that. Like I 1000% did the why me, and just so my favorite poem of all time, it was Then That I Carried You, Footprints in the Sand. And so you think like footprints in the sand, it was then that I carried you. And yet when I went through my darkest days, like I was pretty convinced I was walking alone. Yet in reflection, it was then that I carried you. God was carrying me the whole time, but I just couldn't see it because of just the pain and the anger that I was experiencing. But then in that journey, I went back to Rutgers, and it took some time to kind of get back on my feet. But then I started getting plugged into Athletes in Action, which is their, Christian community, and started attending some of those meetings, and really just kind of getting plugged into the faith-based community once again. Because I'm at Rutgers, and Rutgers is a huge melting pot, and it's just a vast world out there. You're in the big city essentially, close to New York, and sometimes you get swallowed up by a population of hundreds of thousands of people. So you have to find your community, and you have to ground yourself back in that. And that was so important to me. And once I started to find my community and my people and the people that I could talk to and trust, it really just created just a foundation, and once again, an anchor that I was anchored on all along. I think though, you talk about anchors, it's so easy to you get that anchor, we drift. But that's why it's important to be anchored, because as you drift, you always know where to come back to. And for me, that was so important. And I think that is where I truly found my walk in Christ. And then I'll say this, I say that walk continued to grow and blossom, as I met my now husband, John, and just our walk together. And, his encouragement, and having someone like that in your corner, constantly encouraging and really holding you accountable and wanting to walk alongside you, I think is so important. And for me, that has really helped my faith to blossom. And, again, I think that God has me where I'm supposed to be. For many years, I chased like the next thing. Oh, ESPN, what's next? And now I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Mhm.
Let's be in it. Let's enjoy it. Let's be in the moment. Let's be where our feet are. And, he'll point me in the direction of where I need to go next. But for now, right here's where it's at.
That is so awesome. Lauren, it's a good mic drop. And how do people get your book? How do they
You're
reach
the
out to you?
best. I
You are.
appreciate you. Thank you so much, Stan. So laurensisler.com, you can go there. I've got a form on there. So if you just want to reach out and say hello, those emails come right to my inbox, buddy. So if you want to just say hello, share your story, maybe give a shout out to Stan, his podcast, maybe something that resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. You can also, grab oh, we got some music. Are we shimmy?
You know what? We needed a shimmy because my my meditation music came on. So it's noon where I
That
am.
is your
So
meditation music?
it's my cue. It's my cue to go meditate. So it's something I knew I'm trying. And I didn't mean to interrupt because
No, I love it.
I want people to
Perfect.
know how to get your book.
Right on time.
And you said LaurenSisler.com.
LaurenSisler.com. And then,
Get
I
the
mentioned
book
I got the drop
Shatterproof.
down, the book Shatterproof. You can go on my website. It'll take you to all the places you can get that, and also social media. Check me out there. And again, just reach out. I'd love to hear from you. And Stan, thank you for what you do.
Oh,
I love your emails. I love just the conversations that you have. And, the world needs more of you in these type of conversations because they're so important. And I just appreciate you and thank you for what you do.
you're just fly. You're a mic drop, just being you. I appreciate that. And I would say this because I know I don't want to go over, but I know the bigger question I wanted to ask was, who's going to take the SEC this year? And I want to tell you something. All my friends are Tennessee Vol fans. So
Oh, okay.
if you said anything but Tennessee, I'm afraid I might get the down button. I don't know. But anyway, it's going to be an exciting season, isn't it?
It is. I have said this because we're still a few weeks away, and I say this because I don't know when this podcast will drop, but I will say this to you. I do try to stay away from predictions because number one, I feel like I always get it wrong. Like I've always been like when it comes to like the brackets and all the things, I'm usually like last place. Like it's terrible. But with the predictions, you always end up creating hate. People will love to hate on you. But I also will say this too. I'm relishing in the last days of summer, it's spending time with my family and whatnot. And so I've told people that I'm technically on vacation for a few more weeks, and then I'll really be diving in. And so maybe I'll have an answer for you then. Because right now it's still talking season, but I know fall camp's about to rev up, and so I think we'll have some more intel as the teams are starting to come to light, and we're starting to see the pieces fall into place. So, with that being said, I'll just give you a go Vols. I mean, is that a good mic drop for you?
I think they'll love that. I think they'll love that. Thank you, my friend. Love you to death. You're awesome, and we got to catch up some more.
Yep, we sure will. Appreciate
Thanks.
you, Stan.
Take
Thank y'all.
care. Wow, everybody. What an episode. Can't thank Lauren enough for, she does this day in and day out. And so to relive this experience is, I just don't know how she does it, but I'll tell you what, it's the resilience, it's the leadership, it's the things that, again, that, we look for in the Inspiration podcast. And I've got to somehow get, in fact, I'll get the shimmy. You've got to see the shimmy. I'll get the shimmy in the show notes. And you've got to check out. In fact, I think we'll also put the interview that she had with Charles Barkley and with Nick Saban in the show notes as well. I think that's got to be worth the price of admission right there. But the amount of resiliency that she has, we've got. In fact, I've got what's called at my company, Stan Gibson Speaks. We've got the Resiliency Lab, and we've got two forms of it. I've got a mastermind, in which we have always have running 15 emerging or seasoned leaders in a mastermind. And we meet and we talk about these things. We talk about resiliency. We talk about self-awareness. We talk about well-being and mental health. We talk about creating and leaving a legacy. And if you're interested, I want you to reach out to me at stan@stangibsonspeaks.com. stan@stangibsonspeaks.com. And it's something that it stokes really powerful conversation. If you want to be surrounded by powerful people and you want to rise to the top, then I think this is really something that, I would appreciate just reaching out. Let's see if it's a fit. Let's just see if it's a win-win. And, the other part of my resiliency lab is, leadership labs that I do for organizations. I've got 12 different modules, again, around the same core areas that I just mentioned. But, I do meet monthly with a lot of organizations, and we talk about resiliency, and we can break those modules into just one, customized one. We can break it into 3, we can break it into 5, we can break it into all 12. But again, reach out to me, Stan@StanGibsonSpeaks.com, Stan@StanGibsonSpeaks.com. And thank you for joining us today. Again, I think any kind of inspiration that we can get, because we all are going through challenges in life, every one of us. And as I've always said, I think the good book always tells us it's not a matter of if you're going to go through challenges, it's when. And so to hear a lot of the guests that we have on about how they've overcome imposter syndrome, how they've overcome tragedies such as Lauren's, I think is always beneficial. So, hey, stay tuned. We've got some great, great, great episodes coming up that'll mirror these. And so if you like this one, I think you're going to love the rest of them. May you all live a rich and intentional life. Take care and have a great day. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at StanGibsonSpeaks.com.